Late at night on the beach, a huge group of college students is having a wild party. Mitch reminds everyone to put their phones in a bag so nobody can take incriminating pictures or videos that could get them in trouble. Suddenly Vance and Gilbert bring a ball made of a goo that they found in the sea. They want to have a bigger fire to burn it, but they get diverted when insults are thrown and an argument develops. The ball is forgotten and the crowd continues to enjoy themselves for the rest of the night. The next morning Kaylee wakes up beside Mitch in the lifeguard stand and embarrassment seems to capture the rest of their conversation as they remember last night. Other four friends wake up in a car, but Marcia awakens on a table and immediately vomits. Kaylee looks around and sees plenty of deserted stuff on the sand but not another human, which is bizarre. There's also a bird stuck on the ground and Kaylee is shocked to see it sink into the sand. When Marcia begins moving, Kaylee tries to tell her not to do it, but it's too late. Her feet are stuck and she can't pull them out no matter how much she tries. When her hands touch the sand, they get stuck too. At first, the group in the car thinks she is playing a prank on them, but her screaming and tears prove that she is actually afraid. Vance wants to help her and ignores the others when they try to stop him. He jumps out of the car and only takes a couple of steps before he falls and gets stuck too. When Vance yells in pain, Mitch and Jonah want to help him but the girls stop them. As Vance starts sinking into the sand, Jonah tries starting the car but it won't work. Mitch throws a buoy tied to a rope but doesn't fall close enough. By now Vance has lost half his face and when he tries to raise his head, very thin strands pull him back down. In just a few minutes, both he and Marcia disappear into the sand. Afterward the group discuss what to do. They can't call 911 because their phones are in the trunk, and the car battery is dead so Jonah still can't make it start. Kaylee puts her hand near the sand without touching it and everyone is shocked to see some mysterious strands coming out. At that moment Gilbert wakes up. It turns out he's been stuck in a trash can with a naughty drawing on his face because of a party prank. He starts insulting his friends for leaving him there and tries to get out, disregarding the warning the others are screaming. It isn't until they tell him two people are dead that Gilbert ceases his actions. He reveals his body is aching from being trapped there so Mitch reminds him of the fact in a few hours the tide will push him towards them. Then Kaylee drags Mitch inside the lifeguard stand. Jonah watches them with envy and Chanda reminds him he has to let go. While the mysterious strands try reaching for the car tires, Kaylee and Mitch find some booze in the cooler and begin drinking. Hours pass but nobody shows up. The sun is getting strong and the people in the car try to cover themselves with a towel. Kaylee finally gets brave enough to ask Mitch what they did last night and Mitch assures her they only talked. Mitch finds some sunscreen in the lifeguard stand and Kaylee throws it at her friends in the car. As they discuss last night's events, they realize the rest of the partygoers didn't leave, they were eaten by the sand. Everyone cries except for Gilbert, who starts freaking out because the heat is burning his skin. Jonah tosses him the sunscreen, which calms him down for now. At that moment Kaylee notices the goo ball all dried up and busted in two. Ronnie realizes that it looks like it hatched, which means it's not a ball, it's an egg and the monster that came out of it is the thing in the sand eating people. Because it was only born last night, Kaylee deduces it isn't very big yet. She gets a sausage from the cooler and throws it on the sand. Now everyone can see how the strands drag it underground. They throw a few more sausages because they want to see how far the monster reaches, but the strands keep coming out. A bird comes down to eat one of the sausages, only for the strands to catch it and quickly kill it. They throw the last sausage in another direction and the monster doesn't eat it, so that's the safe zone. It's not very far, but still enough to make it dangerous to reach it. The group begins arguing again and Ronnie points out they haven't seen a single car or person pass by in hours, so she can't be this simple. Refusing to give up, Jonah grabs two surfboards from the back of the car and throws them on the sand. The monster doesn't react, so he jumps on them safely. Now he can alternate the boards to move without danger. When Kaylee reminds him not, Jonah warns that he has his fingers too close to the sand, stopping in his track and declaring, "We have to talk." He says out loud every name of whoever cheated last night, but Jonah's friends want this to be a talk for later, their priority is escape. Jonah continues moving until he reaches the bench. The surfboard slips and he almost falls, but he grabs onto the bench at the last second. The others notice that the monster strands are moving the boards back and tell Jonah to come back, but he insists he can still save himself. Suddenly the strands appear under Jonah and touch his stomach, so he makes a jump to finally reach the top of the table. The strands left bleeding wounds on his skin and Jonah starts to feel dizzy, so he lays down while hearing a pitching sound in his ears instead of his friends' worried voices. After a few seconds of resting, Jonah snaps out of it and complains of pain and explains, as if stings are 1,000 jellyfish. The wound's not very deep. Ronnie concludes Strand's poisonous. Jonah takes deep breaths, forcing himself to move as there's a bag on the bench. He finds some food and accidentally drops a banana, which doesn't sink. When he picks it up, he notices the strands and lowers the banana again, but the monster only comes out in the sand, not on the bonfire spot. Then he jumps off the bench to land on the same spot and nothing happens, which confirms his theory: the monster hates fire. To celebrate, Jonah eats the banana only to watch in horror how his stomach wounds begin expelling pus. Kaylee calms him down with gentle but firm words, telling him to get back on the table and check the bag again. He finds some drinks and begins tossing them at his friends, but when he's tossing the last can, the bench cracks and he slides. His wounds ooze out more pus before they start to pop and bleed, sending him screaming with agony. Tons of effort keep Jonah moving and help him get back on the table. Concurrently, the surfboards are moving on their own, and this means that the monster is removing any means they might use to get away. Then the strands come underneath the car to attach to themselves to the tires, trying to drag them. Gilbert asks after the phones and Ronnie starts pulling at the back seats to get to the trunk, but they do not budge. She says she is going to try standing on the bumper to open it instead, but the metal is hot so she must cover the trunk with the towel. Before moving, Ronnie tells Chanda that she wrote a letter for her mom in her notebook and asks her to deliver it if something happens to her. By holding Chanda's hands for security, Ronnie drops down to crawl on the trunk and lower her body to stand on the bumper. Meanwhile, Kaylee checks up on the others. Jonah's unconscious body and Gilbert will shortly pass out due to the heat emanating from the can metal that digs onto his skin. Ronnie manages to shove the keys into the lock and start opening the trunk, only for the lid to slide down. Luckily she doesn't fall. She tries again and the lid hits her legs, making her slip and land on top of the trunk, closing it again. Kaylee points out that the trunk is too wide so she'll have to lean back. Chanda and Rooney roll up the towel to use it as a rope, but it's still not long enough for Ronnie to lean back and open the trunk at the same time. Mitch and Kaylee remember that there's a rescue hook in the lifeguard stand and pass it to Ronnie, who has trouble moving because the car shakes when the monster pierces the tires. Very slowly, Ronnie finally manages to open the trunk. But before she can reach for the phones, another car appears on the beach and honks so loudly that it startles her. Ronnie slips and the trunk closes, catching her fingers. While she screams in pain, the others start yelling and waving their arms to get the new person's attention. The car stops near the table and Officer Alex of the beach patrol lowers his window to tell them the beach is closed. The friends explain what happened but Alex thinks they drank too much and doesn't believe them. Ignoring their warnings, he exits the car but nothing happens. Alex checks on Jonah and Gilbert, walks around the beach without any issues. The strands try to grab his feet but cannot penetrate through his boots. He mocks Gilbert about his size and the drawing on his face before trying to pull him out to no avail. Then Alex checks on Ronnie but he can't get her fingers out either. He keeps insulting everyone and implying they consume something illegal, so Kaylee yells at him for being useless. Alex goes to the lifeguard stand and begins arguing with Kaylee and Mitch, still not believing their story and threatening to use force if they don't come down. Since the duo refuses, he reaches for his pepper spray and accidentally drops his car keys. As soon as he reaches down to grab them, his hand gets stuck. Kaylee tells him to use the pepper spray and when Alex sprays the strands, they vanish under and drop out. Alex cries in agony as he realizes his arm has already been eaten and falls on the sand because the monster has begun to drag him down. Using the ramp on the stand, Ronnie gets close enough to snatch the pepper spray while ignoring Alex's cries for help, allowing him to drown. After having caught a glimpse of Alex's boots, Mitch is still wearing his flip-flops and requests Chanda for some of her towels, which he intends to use to wrap around his feet. He catches the first one without a hitch, but when he catches for the second the railing snaps and he falls into the sand. The monster strands instantly reach for him and grasp every inch of body they can reach, so the others have to sit and watch as Mitch gradually bleeds to death while his body sinks into the sand. The strands even destroy his shirt and emerge out from under his eyes and mouth. Once the body is gone, the blood marks the spot where he died. Later Kaylee notices that the monster is moving the broken railing and tells Chanda to grab it. Kaylee breaks more of the railing and tosses it at Chanda too with the towel. Then she decides to risk it and jumps off the stand, luckily landing on the car. Suddenly Kaylee punches Chanda for getting naughty with her boyfriend and the girls decide they're not even now. Jonah apologizes to Kaylee for what he did and they say, "I love you," to each other. Gilbert uses his last strength to turn around in the trash can to communicate better with his friends, and the strands keep stretching out for the dripping blood. Kaylee and Chanda pull Ronnie's body till they are able to get her hand out, then they bandage it with the towel. Then they place the railing pieces in the sand and create a bridge, and Chanda walks on it, explaining that actually did nothing with Jonah last night. After Chanda safely reaches the table, Kaylee crosses over to reach her boyfriend. Ronnie comes next, but she gets distracted when she notices blood dripping from the towel. As Ronnie loses balance and falls, Kaylee begins spreading paper spray to buy them some time. It seems Ronnie is okay and Kaylee grabs her arm, but the monster strands attaches to Ronnie's other arm and pulls her down to make her sink. Everyone wails, oblivious to the strands that slowly go up Gilbert's trash can. Chanda has the idea to follow Mitch's plan by covering herself feet with the towels. She runs as fast as she can and manages to get on top of Alex's car. Suddenly Gilbert feels the can moving and panics, but it only lasts a few seconds. Right after he announces it's over, he spits blood as big tentacles come out of the can to wrap around his body. They immediately bring him down, only leaving a trail of blood behind. Then the monster shakes Alex's car, causing Chanda to fall on the hood and hit her head, which knocks her out. Several hours pass, and night falls. Chanda finally wakes up and finds there's a raft on top of the car. She tosses it on the sand to get to the table, and now she can help Kaylee get Jonah into the car. At that moment, the ground begins to shake, and Kaylee falls backward onto the raft. As she is ready to go back to the car, a glowing tentacle reaches out in front of her and attacks, but since she dodges it only shuts the car door before she disappears. Kaylee climbs up on top of the car and grabs a gas can. However, again the tentacle comes out and destroys that one, dousing itself with gas in the process. Kaylee snatches another one and dumps it on the sand before getting some matches from her pocket. When the tentacle tries to attack her again, Kaylee lights the matches and throws them at it, so the entire tentacle catches on fire. As the creature squirms and screeches, Chanda opens the door so Kaylee can get in the car too. The monster tries opening the door, but the girls pull it back to keep it closed. It also tries hitting the car with its now bigger strands to no avail, so it decides to disappear. The girls take a moment to regain their breath and realize Jonah is dead, so they break down in tears. The next morning a surfer finds the car and knocks on the window to wake the girls up. They come out and walk on the sand without issues, meaning the monster is gone. While Kaylee and Chanda start making their way home, the creature is swimming in the sea to try to reach a new beach with fresh victims.